In Minecraft, some items are so pivotal to your gameplay that they can be considered OP or overpowered. Usually, this is a term used in multiplayer games, often those primarily focused on player versus player combat, to refer to items, weapons or characters that are so good, using them in and of itself significantly swings the odds of winning in a player's favor. While such a definition may seem a little out of place in a sandbox survival game like Minecraft, even this game has some items that can be seen as OP. The Mace, for example, is a weapon that can very easily eviscerate all kinds of players and mobs alike, instantly making you much more threatening in combat. Another example might be potions, which depending on the type of potion provide many useful effects for both combat and general survival.
World. What's he doing here?
Oh.
Hey!
No way!
Holy!
I
Yep,
just
so
got
that's the
three-shot.
power of strength.
While Minecraft thus has no shortage of dangerous combat options, another way an item can be considered OP in Minecraft, in my opinion at least, is through significantly altering the way you play the game before versus after obtaining them. Of course, the greatest example of this type of OP would have to be the Elytra. However, can you think of something else that these three items have in common? In addition to all three being somewhat of a milestone to finally acquire, these items, with maybe the exception of potions, can definitely be considered special late game items not easily obtained by just anyone. While experienced players often have little issue gunning directly for certain items first thing, the average player who's just looking to have a fun time and survive Minecraft's many dangers is not going to have access to these items for some time. However, like I said before, any item that changes the way you play the game can be considered at least a little OP, in my opinion. And if you agree with this, then there are actually some items in the game that are so ordinary you probably wouldn't think twice about them, yet harbor some hidden attributes that can really help you survive Minecraft's many mobs, navigate the terrain, or just save you a lot of time in general. So today, I'll be presenting a small list of items and tools in Minecraft that are actually way more useful than you and many other players probably give them credit for. All of which you can get easily as soon as or even before you mine your first pieces of iron. Let's start with a more well-known one. Axes in Minecraft are most commonly associated with woodcutting, however they can also be used effectively in combat, both against other players as an axe strike can temporarily stun their shield, and against Minecraft's most common hostile mobs. One problem that you might run into when you first start out in Minecraft is that stone and especially wooden swords just don't deal that much damage. So every encounter with a zombie, spider, creeper, or god forbid a skeleton when you don't have access to a shield yet, becomes its own challenge, and on top of that, you'll probably spend a lot of time early game chasing animals down for food, because cows and pigs can't be one-shot with a wooden or stone sword. However, this is where the axe comes in, as an axe of any kind actually does way more damage compared to a sword of the same material. By taking a closer look at the attributes of the sword and axe, we can see that the axe deals a lot more damage per swing, with the drawback being a lower attack speed and the lack of the area of effect sweep that the sword has. But that doesn't really matter, since the increased raw damage means the axe pretty much solves all those problems I mentioned earlier. I once read a saying from the Minecraft speedrunning community or something. I can't quite remember it at all, but it went something like, stone axes save lives. Since even a stone axe already deals enough damage per hit to take out a lot of hostile monsters in the game, such as zombies, skeletons and creepers, in just 2 hits with critical strikes. In addition, you can also one-shot beefy animals such as cows, sheep and pigs, so you won't have to chase them around to land that final blow. And while a wooden axe is also capable of this, most people prefer stone axes as they have more than double the durability and are also pretty easy to craft. And what about the higher tier axes? Well, these don't actually achieve any better results. Okay, yeah, on paper they do more damage, but even a netherite axe enchanted with sharpness 5, yes, you can put sharpness on an axe using enchanted books, by the way, still won't be enough to one-shot zombies, skeletons and what have you. It'll just two-shot them, just like a basic unenchanted stone axe, so what's the point? While higher tier axes obviously improve on durability and the efficiency of woodcutting, the fact that such an early game item can output so much damage against hostile monsters makes the axe a super versatile tool when you start venturing out into the lands beyond your spawn point, even though swords eventually start outclassing it later on once enchantments come into the picture. Moving along to another tool that some players underestimate, we have the hoe. The hoe has historically been kind of a laughingstock of a tool, only really being used for one pretty cut and dry purpose. I mean, one of the game's advancements literally makes fun of you for upgrading a hoe of all things with netherite. However, the developers have been gradually expanding the hoe's use cases over the past few years, mainly by making hoes break certain blocks much more efficiently as opposed to other mining tools like shovels, axes and pickaxes. These blocks include moss, hay bales, warped and nether wart blocks, shroomlights, sponge and dried kelp for some reason, and probably most significant of all, skulk blocks and leaves. In case you didn't know, every skulk type block, except for the veins, drops a little bit of experience when mined with a non-silk touch tool. And since diamond hoes with really good enchantments already on them are a pretty common find when looting ancient cities, this actually makes mining skulk a pretty underrated source of experience if you don't have a dedicated experience farm. Hell, people have even designed offbeat experience farms centered around this mechanic, as anything that dies near a skulk catalyst will have its experience absorbed and stored through the creation of new skulk blocks, thus allowing you to essentially keep some experience in the bag for yourself. Another block that a hoe can break really efficiently is leaves, oak leaves to be more specific, which have a small chance of dropping an apple when broken, which increases if your hoe is enchanted with fortune, allowing you to craft golden apples pretty early in your adventure as soon as you mine your first pieces of gold. And let me tell you, these things are absolutely worth it. Not only does a golden apple temporarily provide you with some extra maximum health, it also gives you an extremely fast burst of health regeneration through both the status effect itself and the large amount of saturation it restores. Trust me, managing to grab some of these sooner rather than later is a godsend, especially on higher difficulties, and the hoe can be a nice help for achieving this. As soon as you get your first bits of iron, you are faced with an important decision. What iron tier equipment do you craft first? There's a lot of good options, to be honest. An iron pickaxe, the ever-reliable shield, and another item that's always a high priority for me, the buckets. Now, much like the hoe, the bucket may seem like a pretty straightforward tool at first. You can use it to move liquids such as water, lava, milk, powdered snow, yeah, close enough.
I'm joking! Stop!
You can make an infinite source of water for stuff like filling water bottles, an infinite source of lava for fueling furnaces, and get infinite milk as well, I guess. While these are all things that are nice to have in your base, where the bucket actually really gets to shine is when you're out exploring all 3 of Minecraft's dimensions. Of course, you can save yourself from a deadly fall with a well-timed water bucket, though this does take some skill and practice to pull off consistently. Or just mashing the button, that works too sometimes. However, carrying a bucket of water with you is great for mobility in general, as you can use it instead of blocks to scale up and down large caves, or even just get out of tiny pits in the ground. Using a water bucket here as opposed to just placing blocks has the advantage that you'll never run out of water, since you can continuously pick the source back up. In addition, when exploring underwater caves, nuzzling up to a block and then spam using the bucket will continuously create brief pockets of air, which actually replenishes your oxygen overall, allowing you to stay underwater for pretty much as long as you'd like. Even though these uses all pertain specifically to the water bucket, the bucket's usefulness does not let up once you enter the nether. While you obviously can't make use of any of the aforementioned tricks anymore here, the abundance of lava in this dimension provides another liquid that you can pick up and carry with you. Lava is a dangerous environmental hazard in the nether, spreading faster and further in this dimension. Plus, it always feels like I stay on fire for way longer in the nether compared to the overworld, though I don't have an official source to confirm this. So why would you ever want to carry such a dangerous substance with you in this dimension? Well, to use against your enemies, of course. While a majority of the mobs unique to the nether are naturally immune to fire, there are 2 key ones that aren't: hoglins and piglins. Hoglins can be pretty dangerous when traversing the Crimson Forests, as they're pretty fast, have quite a lot of health and launch you up when attacking, adding fall damage as a cherry on top of the decent amount of damage they already inflict. If you place a bucket of lava on top of them as they come charging at you, the lava simultaneously slows them down and inflicts huge amounts of damage, often enough to just melt them outright. It helps that the hoglins' hitbox is quite big, making it easy to catch them with the initial patch of lava. As a bonus, hoglins that die while on fire drop cooked pork chops, which is a pretty great food source. Now for the piglins. Every Minecraft player who has ever encountered one knows that the Bastion remnants might be the most dangerous structures to explore in all of Minecraft. While wearing a piece of golden armor makes the regular piglins ignore you as you walk around the structure, their enhanced counterparts, the piglin brutes, won't be fooled and will charge right at you, dealing huge amounts of damage. However, attacking these brutes to defend yourself will make every normal piglin in the vicinity turn on you, almost certainly sealing your fate. However, since piglins are also not immune to fire, you can use the same strategy that I demonstrated just now on these brutes, killing them fast and efficiently without angering any of the other piglins wandering about, since from their perspective, their brother technically just caught a stray from an environmental hazard.
Oh, hi Mark.
Once you've located and killed all the piglin brutes this way, you're free to walk around unbothered, planning out your strategy for obtaining the chest loot or bartering with the many normal piglins found around this place in peace. Even in Minecraft's final dimension, the end, the bucket, now once again filled with water, does not let up in terms of usefulness. The structures and combat encounters in this dimension are pretty vertically oriented, So the water bucket is once again useful for saving yourself from deadly falls into the void or just onto the pavement. Even within the confined spaces of end cities, the water bucket can be of use. Something I've recently learned is that when you're in water, you completely just negate the levitation effect the shulker bullets inflict upon you, allowing you to still travel upwards and downwards as you please, keeping within melee distance of the shulkers to take them out regardless. So, whether it's escaping a 2-block deep pit, taking out some of the most dangerous mobs, or exploring structures at the end of the game, the humble bucket always has the potential to be the quiet MVP of your Minecraft playthrough. One of the greatest struggles early on in a Minecraft world is the scramble for a decent food source. If you're lucky, you'll spawn near a village and can plunder several hay bales to convert into large amounts of bread, not to mention the various villagers that offer food items as part of their profession. However, I always find these options a little lacking. Bread restores a decent bit of hunger, but gives pretty low saturation in comparison to a lot of other food items, meaning it feels like I'm constantly having to keep chugging whenever bread is my main food source. And when it comes to trading with villagers, such as farmers or butchers, these often need to be leveled up a bit first before they start offering better alternatives. Cooked meat, such as pork chops, steak and even mutton, provide better hunger and saturation restoration. However, the downside to eating these as your main food source is that you're gonna be spending much more time killing animals, cooking the meat first, and establishing a farm if you want a renewable source of it. Even using a campfire, which serves as a faster, more fuel-efficient way to cook foods, isn't a perfect solution by any means, as you can only cook items in batches of 4 on it, and the campfire can't be moved or placed without silk touch, which you likely won't have access to in the early game. However, once you get your hands on your first piece of iron, you can craft the famous Flint Steel, which isn't just used for lighting nether portals, TNT, your friend's base. Remember in the previous section where I mentioned that hoglins that died while on fire drop cooked pork chops? Well, the same is true for all other mobs in the game. From cows to pigs to chickens, any mob that dies while on fire will drop the already cooked version of its meat. So, by equipping a flint and steel in your offhand and a weapon in your main hand, you can quickly set animals ablaze and then take them out before they run off too far. It helps that the fire does substantial damage on its own, so when it comes to chickens, for example, you won't even have to deal any additional damage, as they're squishy enough to die to just the fire damage. For other mobs, such as cows, sheep and pigs, a single hit with an axe on top of the fire damage should be enough. Using this method, you can quickly collect enough cooked food to last you quite a while, provided you aren't concerned about the health of the ecosystem. You know something I've recently realized? Minecraft boats are literally the avatar. I'm not kidding, let's break it down. First and most obvious one, water. I mean, boats are literally designed for transportation over water. However, just as boats can be used to transport players, so too can mobs be forced to sit down in boats, which renders them completely immobile until the boat is broken. This has a variety of useful applications, such as being able to take your dog with you across a large ocean, which would otherwise leave them stranded, or making villagers actually stay in place and go where you want them to go. However, my favorite use for this feature is actually in the Nether, when dealing with arguably one of Minecraft's most dangerous mobs, the Enderman. On higher difficulties, these guys can easily kill even decently geared players. They're fast in both movement and attack speed. They can teleport away from or towards players on a dime, and their movement in general is just unpredictable as hell. Yet, you still need ender pearls to beat the game, so you're forced to fight at least some of them unless you want to be stuck bartering with piglins for hours on end. Like I said before, any mob that gets stuck in a boat will be rendered completely immobile, including endermen. Put them in a boat and you can just drop them like any other mob. They can't even teleport while stuck inside it. The only thing you'll have to be aware of is that even when inside the boat, their attack range is still wildly large. Alternatively, you can place a boat down prematurely, then look at an enderman to trigger him, causing him to teleport towards you, after which you run across the boat with the enderman chasing you and he'll get stuck. Sometimes. Yeah, for some reason I find that whenever an aggroed enderman runs by a boat, there's like a 50% chance that he'll simply walk over it without getting stuck. And since these guys are so fast, looping back around for another try with him still hot on your tail might just cost you more damage than you can afford. So maybe just stick with the ones in your direct vicinity to be safe. And that's the thing. While this isn't really a particularly fast or exciting method to farm ender pearls, it is a very safe method that's also easy to pick up. So I guess this would be earth, since you trap the mobs in place on the ground. Let's just go with it. Next up, air. While there might be more planes in the ocean than submarines in the sky, real-world logic rarely applies to Minecraft, and as such sending yourself flying through the air in a boat can actually be really helpful. This is because any entity sitting in a boat, be it a player or any sort of mob, will be completely immune to fall damage, meaning you can just place down a boat at the edge of a long drop, sit inside of it, send it over the edge and actually be completely fine. Once again, the Nether is where I make use of this most often, since traversing this dimension often comes paired with a lot of elevation changes and bridging across gaps. Unlike in the overworld, you can't rely on water buckets anymore, so boats are the next best thing for traveling downwards. Also, ever since the recent Chase the Skies update, you can now connect boats to happy guests with leads, making transporting a lot of mobs much less of a hassle. So I guess you could also put that under air for the boat's resume. That leaves only fire, which generally doesn't really match well with the wooden boat. There is, however, a strategy that Minecraft speedrunners have developed that uses lots of boats to create split-second platforms to jump from, which is nevertheless pretty difficult to pull off.
Hey! Hey! Oh, yes. Yes, impossible. There goes.
Even so, the boat thus serves as an unexpected and incredibly versatile tool to carry you throughout your Minecraft playthrough, surprisingly finding a lot of use in the one dimension without any water in sight. How many times have you actually crafted a door in Minecraft? Probably not that many, since I mean, it's a door. You put it in the entrance of your house, and that's it. And even then, there are other ways of making an entrance to your base. So doors often get kind of neglected. However, as with everything else mentioned so far, the door actually has an underrated niche when you first start out in Minecraft, before you've even built yourself a house. If you're lucky enough to spawn near a river or ocean, you might find the nearby caves to be largely flooded, large systems of tunnels submerged underwater, which are known as aquifers. While descending such caves introduces obvious risks of getting lost and drowning, There's actually a real advantage to exploring these submerged caverns as opposed to regular dry caves. You see, because of the way ores generate in Minecraft, larger pockets of ores are more common when none of the blocks are exposed to air on any side. This means that you're technically more likely to find larger quantities of resources while mining as opposed to caving, to compensate for the fact that caves already form a spacious gateway down into the mines at the bottom of the world. But with these underwater caves, you essentially get the best of both worlds. Because the blocks here aren't exposed to air at all, ores are more likely to generate, while these naturally generated tunnels still make reaching the deeper depths where more valuable resources spawn more convenient. Though the risk of drowning is still the elephant in the room, which is where the door comes in. Because at any point while swimming around these caverns, you can simply place down a door to create an air bubble, which replenishes your oxygen, after which you can simply break the door, pick it back up again and carry on. The advantage to doing this as opposed to utilizing the water bucket like I mentioned earlier, is that a door creates a permanent air bubble until it is broken, allowing you to mine nearby ores at normal speeds. This trick can thus allow you to gather large amounts of iron, gold and even diamonds pretty early in the game, provided you have a high enough brightness to see down there, giving the door a niche but surprisingly useful purpose. And the same goes for its little brother, the trapdoor. Placing a trapdoor on a cave wall, standing beside it and then opening it is a good way to get into a crawling position to mine, creating small one-block tunnels that mobs can't follow you through, nor can spawn inside of. Though this is also possible with just a water bucket, so the trapdoor is still pretty niche overall. In the end, Minecraft is a sandbox game, and as such there are often a variety of methods to tackle a specific challenge or obstacle. Thus, I hope this video has taught you some new and creative ways to use these seemingly mundane items en route to obtaining some of the more overtly powerful items in the game.